And we're back on a Tuesday night. Grateful to see everybody, and we are always grateful to see old friends back with us. And I tell you what, we are tickled pink, as we say here in the South. Michael Jaffe, good to see you. It's been a while. We have both had some ups and downs physically, but it is so good to have you back on the McFiles tonight. It's been a while, a lot of water under the bridge, friends, since we've seen you last, and I wish I could say all of it was good. It's not been good in Israel and some other places of the world, but especially your nation. Good to see you tonight. How are you? It's good to see you, friend.
Good to see you, Chris. I'm doing fine, thank God, and taking my blessings wherever I can, and thanking God for my blessings wherever I get them.
I couldn't have said that better, my friend, and I'm doing the same. Mike, today is Remembrance Day in Israel, and I wanted to talk to you about this because it's, as I said, we've not talked in a long time, and I think the event that still hangs over the world, it should hang over the world, honestly, the situation that took place on October the 7th of 2023 along the Gaza Strip, and the brutality that I think the world witnessed was something that most people with a conscience can, I think, fairly say that it was the worst since the Holocaust. And I don't say that lightly, because the Holocaust will always stand out as the world's most atrocious act of barbarism and murder that any country could have experienced. But this was different. It was modern. It was calculated. It definitely was planned, and it has left a scar on our Jewish friends. And I just I want to get your take on that, but I also want to talk about Remembrance Day, because this is the day that you remember everyone in Israel that has died as a relate to terror, military. It's sort of like our Memorial Day here, and then we've got Independence Day coming up tomorrow, and it's a special time for Israel, but it's a time we remember. We had Holocaust Remembrance Day last week, but what's your thoughts as you sit here on this April night in 2025, because everything changed on October the 7th. I mean, it's a changed world, and it's a changed Israel.
In many ways, it was worse than what happened in the Holocaust, because in the Holocaust, the Nazis kept very meticulous records of what they did. On the other hand, they also they did not declare it to the world what they were doing. On October the 7th, the terrorists and the other Gazans who came over, because Hamas was not alone coming over that border. There were thousands who came over, and they had their GoPros on their heads, and they declared, and they videotaped themselves. They recorded themselves. Remember, we're in the digital age. They recorded themselves, and they were proud, and they declared to the world this is what they were going to do. And weeks later, they said, as the war loomed and as the war began, because Israel did not retaliate immediately. But as the war began, the Hamas leadership said, we're going to do this again and again and again. Because what they say to the world is not what, in English, is not what they say to the world, to their own in Arabic.
That's right.
And so in many ways, and also the world's reaction, much of the world's reaction, not the whole world, but much of the world's reaction after October the 7th was much different than when the Holocaust was, let's say, it couldn't be hidden anymore. And the world had to own up to what it had let happen. And throughout the world, the immediate reaction, especially on college campuses and university campuses, was support for the terrorists. And rioting in the streets, and rioting on the campuses, the encampments at Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Berkeley, and on so many universities. And it really made the whole world wake up, and especially the United States wake up to what was happening. And it showed us also the real face of the Biden administration, compared to the Trump administration.
Absolutely.
The Biden administration let this happen, did not refuse to clamp down on really physical threats to Israel supporting students on these campuses, and especially Jewish students who even did not express their support for Israel. These students were physically threatened. They were physically blocked from classes. They were, and it was recommended by some that they go home. Imagine that on a university campus, where a member of any minority is told, we can't protect you. We can't protect you from people who would persecute you illegally. We won't protect you from people who will persecute you illegally. On the contrary, staff members, faculty members came out in support of Hamas. So it was very different. And you mentioned that it changed something. It changed something inside of Israel and outside of Israel. Inside of Israel, it shattered the illusion of what was called the two-state solution.
Absolutely.
These people on the border with Gaza, which is called the Gazan envelope, the communities in southern Israel that were on that border, they were the most peaceful of peaceniks. They were the most progressive and left of leftists in Israel. They were the ones who were constantly espousing peace, and they were the ones who would take Gazans who were sick and needed transportation. They would be at the border, at the checkpoints, taking Gazans to the hospitals within Israel, taking children with cancer, taking the elderly, and they were the ones who would, and they hired Gazans to work in their greenhouses and in their hothouses, and it turns out that those Gazans who were coming over, many Gazans, I should say, I don't know exactly whom, but many Gazans who came over, they were providing Hamas with maps. They knew exactly which families lived where. They knew which families had dogs. They knew which families had weapons. They called out to children in these houses by name.
Wow.
So that change, that was a change within Israel. That's been shattered. And outside of Israel, I would say that Jews and our Christian brothers and sisters, they woke up. And they woke up and they realized that all the things that they had said for years was true. That this threat, that Israel is the canary in the coal mine, this threat is global. You see it in the Islamist takeover of the United Kingdom.
Yes.
You see it in Europe. What's happened to Italy? What's happened to France? What's happened to Scandinavia? To Sweden? Sweden became the rape capital of Western Europe. Why? Because of who they've allowed in. Mm-hmm. So I would say the EU is currently doing a lot of soul searching, and members of the EU are frankly rethinking their participation in the European Union.
Without a doubt. Do you believe that there is a concentrated effort here in America for that same kind of global jihadism to take over here? Because we've had 3 instances, even in this last year. We had a situation in Texas, of all places. And Texas is a fairly red state, and we've got a city down there that's established in Sharia law right underneath the nose of Greg Abbott. We've got Dearborn, Michigan, that's gone fully Muslim. We've got Patterson, New Jersey. Their city council is all Muslim, and they're pushing Sharia law. And Mike, it's funny, and I like to use the word moral clarity. It is deafening. It is just staggering to me how when you explain the brutality of what happened on October the 7th, and people need to realize it was not just Hamas, it was Gazans, it was the citizens of Gaza that was assisting these butchers, and people, they still believe that Israel was the perpetrator of that, and they're still the aggressor. And then I look at our nation, and I see us accepting the very same system, the very same spirit, the same narrative, the same ideology, whatever you want to call it, that led to what happened to you all. And also, our own nation has experienced this on 9/11. And it's just like memories are short, and even the adults that remember it have forgotten it. We have a generation of kids that deny it, and it's just staggering. But the world is about to understand, if I'm afraid too late, that's what they're wanting. They're wanting global jihadism and global takeover. That's why we're seeing this explosion of anti-Semitism. And it's not by accident that these things on the campuses are happening, and it sure ain't by accident that the world is basically standing up for Hamas and not against them.
Absolutely. Do I think it's... Yeah, and you pointed out the very key reasons why we think that it is happening in the U.S., or at least it is. There is an effort to make it happen in the U.S. And yeah, there's that city in Texas. It's high profile.
High profile.
It's not like,
yes.
It's not like they're hiding it. They're not hiding it. And the AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley, and the whole. I guess they used to call them the Squad.
The Squad, yeah.
They are very vocal about this. They are calling. They're using words against Israel like genocide, apartheid. They are using the most incendiary of language, and also participating in the wholesale slander of what Israel is actually doing in Gaza. And what Israel is doing in Gaza is basically they have two priorities in Gaza: rescue the hostages, defeat Hamas. They're not trying to. If they wanted to perpetuate a genocide, it would be over a long time ago.
Absolutely, Mike.
If they were trying to perpetuate a genocide, 2 of my elementary school classmates would not have lost sons in Gaza. And they lose their sons who are soldiers, because those soldiers are on the ground because Israel won't rely on ordnance from above to do the job. They're trying to give the people of Gaza a chance, which is a lot more than most Gazans would do
for Israelis. Totally agree. Do you think that those hostages are alive? That Hamas supposedly says that they've got?
You know, I'm going to say something a little strange, and I'm going to say, unfortunately, I think they're alive. I think they're alive for one purpose, and that's for the purpose that Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, before he was terminated, kept hostages around his whole family. Wherever he would travel, he would surround himself with hostages. So those hostages are there for the leadership as more human shields, in addition to the Gazans, which Hamas proudly proclaims are essentially human cannon fodder. Those Israelis hostages, they are there as human shields, and they will continue to be there. These jihadists, they are willing to give their lives, but they're not willing to give their lives cheaply. They will keep those hostages there, and they will eke out every moment of existence that they can to promote and forward their aims. Their immediate aim is to destroy Israel, to kill as many Jews as possible. That's Islamism.
Yeah.
And jihadism. That's the first step of jihadism. The second is to go after everybody else.
And everybody else is the world, and it's America and anybody that stands in their way of their Islamic submission, and that's what they're wanting. Have you been surprised that there has not been more outside interference from Hezbollah? I know Hezbollah was doing a lot of things over the year too, but Iran, as far as Iran goes, there's been a couple of skirmishes, a little upbeat, but there's not really been an overt, full-fledged push. I know they're working through the proxies. I'm not naive to believe that Iran's not involved in any of this, but you've not seen that overt national one-on-one conflict with Israel and Iran, and I've got a gut feeling, Mike, that this is headed for that, because I don't think Iran's going to give up their nuke aspirations. And everything you've described tonight, you're talking about a terrorist group, but I think what people need to realize is that the same hatred that Hamas has for you all, and he has it for us. Well, when I say you all, I shouldn't even say that. They have it for us. We're us. We're together in this. Look, I look at this. October the 7th was Chris McDonald. We, as the nation of America, mourned. I mourned. When I watched those images coming in, I mourned for those babies. I mourned for the women, the children, the daddies, the mamas, the sons, the daughters, the grandsons that won't come back. But we've got a nation to your east that has capsuled this hatred into a national narrative. And every other day they're saying, we want to nuke and we want to destroy Israel and put her into the Mediterranean Sea. And I think that it would be wise that we believe that, because speaking of Holocaust Remembrance Day, there was another tyrant that arose in Europe named Hitler that said that right in his book, and I don't think the world believed in them. And I think that we make a huge mistake believing that Iran don't mean what they're saying.
I think that much of the world did not believe Hitler. That's true, but I think a big part of the world did believe him, and were not shocked, and they did not get their backs up over it.
That's so true.
And they sort of, a lot of the world, much of the world welcomes that, and it's like that now. It's almost as if some of the world in Europe, some of the people in Europe, see this willing exercise in tyranny and think, oh, there's a new strong man, and somehow they'll say, I think maybe we won't oppose them, and maybe they'll spare us, and at the same time we'll get rid of those pesky Jews. And so I think that's a hard realization, or at least a hard potential possibility to contemplate, is that much of the world, they don't care for freedom as much as they care for comfort. They don't care for freedom as much as they care for a certain kind of order, and a global order. And that's why I guess there's an opposition to the idea of a one global government, and why there's also support for one global government. It's like the human race is undecided as to whether they want to be men or insects.
Michael, that's so true. Have you been shocked at how fast that Islam has taken over England, a nation that I thought would have more sense? I've been shocked at the speed of how they've overtaken that land. I really have been.
Yeah, I am as well. I think we're going to see a pushback. I don't know if it's enough, and I don't know if it's in time. But I think we're going to start seeing a pushback. Let's put it this way: the Brits they decided on Brexit not so long ago.
That's true.
And so when it comes to standing up for their own and their uniqueness, there are strong Brits, and I wouldn't count them out yet. We'll see what happens. We'll see with great trepidation what happens. I pray for them to survive this.
I do too. I do too. From your perspective, what has and this is an opinion question, and I know there's a myriad of answers to this question, and some of them are maybe right in our face, but I think it's more complicated than we may think. Why is the world so blind to the hatred of Jews worldwide? And on this Remembrance Day, the number of Israelis that have been slaughtered, and I'm not just talking about the military, but I'm talking the terrorist victims. This goes all the way back to the intifadas of 87 and 2000 and 2001 and 2. And why is the world so deaf to this, and why does Israel always get the short end of the stick and this rapid anti-Semitism? I'm ashamed for our nation. I almost feel like I need to apologize to you tonight as an Israeli, as a Jew, because you know why? Because I look at our nation over here allowing these kids to slander and to slur and to be so anti-Semitic, and they have no conscience about it. I know a lot of this is coming from parents and their faculty, and because they're a bunch of young, stupid kids that probably don't even know where. If you told them, ask them where Israel was on a map, some of them couldn't even tell you that. But they just march to the beat. But where have we gotten here? Because this thing is accelerating. I sense an uptick in it, and it's a dangerous trend, my friend. And I sense a dangerous thing ahead if we don't curb it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned where the terror goes back to. The terror goes back to the slaughter at Khaybar, Muhammad's slaughter of Jews at Khaybar. The Khaybar is a city, I forgot where. I believe it's near today, where today is Saudi Arabia. But there was a famous in Islam. It's very famous. It's the major event in Muhammad's life, in which he very clearly slaughters a whole tribe of Jews. But it also, in the modern age, it goes back to the late 19th century. These terrorist acts, 1918s. I believe there was a massacre. I'm forgetting where, but 1929 is a very famous massacre in Hebron.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, yeah, I think it's 1917's massacre in Jerusalem. And so it goes back, and at the same time, it's very interesting parallel, because you brought these two things up at the same time, about how children are the next generation is being indoctrinated. That's around the same time as the progressivist movement, the leftist, the extreme leftist movement in the United States was trying to take over, and did take over, the United States' system of education. Think of Dewey, the man who invented the decimal system, those annoying library cards where we used to find things in the library. He was also a progressivist, an extreme far left communist progressive. And at that time, that's when the idea of the family, when the assault on the family, the American family, began. And it's been continuing through education, through higher education especially. So why do these kids, why is it so sudden? It's not so sudden. This has been more than a century in the making. This idea of removing the influence of the family, removing the influence of religion, of the church, and this is the crop we reap now, because we let it happen.
Yeah.
And why is the world doing this now? The world has never been comfortable with holding itself to any kind of moral standard. The world in general. I'm not talking about specific instances. Yes, there are specific instances throughout the world, Europe, Asia, of supreme, extreme human integrity and amazing human values in practice. But there has also been the lust for power, the lust for wealth, and humans enslaving other humans, humans exploiting other humans. And there's no better example than what the modern world has done with several groups, including the Jews, but also including black Africans, continuing to enslave black Africans, and so many other, and ISIS, what ISIS does throughout the region, its enslavement, its forced conversion, its slaughter of people who defy them and refuse to convert to their brand of Islam. We're also seeing something new. We're seeing people on social media, Muslims, standing up and saying no. Louis Sharif is one. I believe he's from the United Arab Emirates. He's become very vocal. Yosef Farid. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out right now.
You're fine.
But there's an Israeli Arab who's a Muslim, who's a believing Muslim. He is now a spokesman, an unofficial spokesperson for Israel and the IDF. He did army service. He was wounded. He goes around and he visits the wounded in hospitals in Israel. He goes throughout the world and he speaks. There are several other high-profile Muslims who are calling themselves out. They're not denying their own piety in their form of Islam, but what they're calling out is what they see as an extremist and anti-human interpretation of Islam. And right now, it's amazing what we're seeing from the Persians. Persians, as a group, we're talking about the Iranians who are the opposition, and they are becoming very vocal. And I have the feeling that that right now, at this time, we're seeing, or we're not seeing, but what is bubbling up right now, and maybe even being prepared, is a revolution in Iran. And I think that's what might be going on behind the scenes. Not being very vocal about it, not being very loud, but those people are ready. They are so ready, and they stand with us, and we stand with them.
Do you? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just that's you asked why this happens.
Yeah,
I'm saying it does happen, but I'm also saying there's also I would say a tremendous, and when I say tremendous, the word tremendous comes from the word tremor,
right?
Which means earthquake.
Shaken.
There's a tremendous, also a tremendous force for good, and for humanity, and for freedom. That's arising as well.
There's been a stark difference since January the 20th of this year compared to how Israel has been treated under the Biden administration. Are the people in Israel optimistic about Israeli-United relations? It's got to make them feel better that they got a president over here that actually cares. I know that him and Prime Minister Netanyahu are not going to agree and see eye to eye on every single jot and tittle. I know that the media tries to bring a wedge between them often, and things get out in the public that we've learned not to believe our media. If they told me the sky is blue, I'd walk outside and look up in the sky and make sure if it was even there. But I think that for the most part, our demeanor toward Israel has definitely changed. I mean, even in the last 3 months, and it's got to make Israelis feel a lot better, does it not?
It does. It is. We can breathe again, quite frankly. And we were holding our breath. I mean, Israelis and Jews also, at least those who know they're Jewish, and those who see what's happening. We were literally holding our breath throughout, I would say, for the 6 months leading up to the election. And what a roller coaster ride that was. When Biden was finally exposed as the dementia-addled, corrupt president that he was, the wholesale pardons that happened, and then the threats that he made, and the cutting off of the embargo, the effective embargo he placed against Israel, right? And we're not talking about late in the offensive in Gaza. We're talking early, and the warnings that he made. And yes, for a week, I'd say for a week and a half, Biden was very pro-Israel after October the 7th. And then of course he changed, and then his I should say that he didn't change, but his handlers changed.
Right.
And that meant that he changed, because I don't think anybody believes that he was driving the car, that he had his hands on the wheel in that administration. And to this day, people are wondering who actually made the calls. But yeah. By the way, I was proud a year ago to go up to Ramat Trump. That's the new village in Israel in the Golan. A wonderful place that was named after Trump. If you do visit here this summer, I'd suggest a trip up to Ramat Trump.
Okay.
It's actually beautiful. It overlooks the Galilee, and it's just gorgeous.
That's awesome.
But anyway, yeah, we are much happier now. We're a little concerned, especially because of Iran. We're concerned about negotiations. It's great to talk to people, but it's important to know that when people are trying to stall you, when people are continuing what they're doing and they're smiling at you pretty,
come on,
but they've got their hands on that shiv and they're ready to plunge it.
That's true.
But then again, I don't.
That's right.
I believe that President Donald J. Trump is no man's fool, and I believe that what he's doing is we don't know exactly what he's doing, and he's not going to be cornered. He's not going to tell anybody what he's doing in advance. He's got strategies, I believe, and I wouldn't put it past him to be developing and executing a very, very effective deterrence and a very effective thwarting of Iran's nuclear ambitions.
I do too. Do you believe any of the hype that there's distance between him and Bibi on the way they're going to handle this? I know there was a report out here last week, and I didn't believe it. Honestly, I didn't. I mean, it was even coming from some Israeli sources, the newspapers we follow, that him and Bibi had a disagreement. Look, I think they're both committed to Iran not getting that bomb, and I don't think it matters at this point who does what first. I think President Trump is on the board with whatever Israel needs to do to defend itself. We're going to have your back in this situation, if not the lead.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. I do agree with you. There's one entity to trust less than the American press, and that's the Israeli press.
I got you.
This year, I would say that right now our version of the New York Times is Haaretz.
Yes.
Haaretz just partnered with an organization called the New Israel Fund to talk about what do you call it when you basically prejudice against the Arab and against Arab politicos in Israel. Now, the one thing is that to remember is that Arabs are at the highest echelon of Israel's social, political, economic ladder. Israeli Arabs are members of Knesset, are judges, are high court justices, not just justices. They are leaders they are generals in the army when they choose that path. They are the majority of our pharmacists and becoming the majority of our physicians are Arab Israelis. So the Arabs are by far and away not discriminated against in Israel. But now Haaretz has partnered with something called the New Israel Fund. And the New Israel Fund is a well-heeled fund. I wouldn't be surprised if George Soros is behind them. And they basically promote all of the anti-Israel NGOs in Israel and outside of Israel. And they claim to be doing this for Israel's own good. But they are very, very. They do a lot of harm. And Haaretz, our intellectual in quotes newspaper, our New York Times, has partnered with this organization specifically to do this, and they're doing it on Israeli campuses. So we also have our own kind of almost, I would call it nihilistic,
right,
almost suicidal institutions of intellectual elites who are working against us. And that's a sign that you have, I would say, a very open democracy if that's the case.
Right. Quick question, and then I got another one follow up. Have y'all seen any of the college protests over there like we're seeing here, or is this isolated to? Is Israel seeing it too, like we are here on our college campuses?
To some degree. Let's put it this way: in Israel, nobody's going to try to physically assault a student because
They're
he or
Jewish.
she is Jewish.
Right.
That's not going to happen. But what does happen is you have the Marxists, and you have basically the Marxists. You had them having demonstrations in Israel against the war, against Bibi Netanyahu, and basically blaming him entirely for October the 7th. They don't even mention Hamas. They blame Bibi. And there's a very large media push in Israel against Bibi. There are banners on all the highways, and they're in Hebrew it's written. I'll translate to English. We're sorry for the fact that you are still in Gaza, meaning the hostages. They don't say it's because of Hamas.
Exactly.
It doesn't say we've lost I don't know how many thousands of soldiers in this campaign trying to free you. They don't mention that. They just mention that it's Israel, it's Bibi, it's our sense of hubris, when it's their sense of hubris. They're the ones claiming some type of intellectual superiority in blaming the victims. And that's all they're doing. They're blaming the victims.
Same here, my friend. They do it here.
The answer is yes, we do have it here.
Yeah. Well, we got it here, and I see it in our social media and our media. Israel is blamed, and as you said, Hamas is never brought up, and it just even our press, they do the same thing. They complain about the Gazan citizens, and I just want to shake a knot in them, and I'm like, well. Israel's not the one that went and raped babies and put babies in ovens and raped women and killed men and cut heads off of families together and took hostages. And the brutality of this, Mike, was on a scale I'd never seen in my lifetime. Look, I remember the morning I woke up from this and you know, and the news was coming through of what happened, and we went on air live here for a little bit, and you know, even a year and a half later, it almost seems surreal. And I got a question for you. This is a weird question. Was there any part of the Israeli government that was surprised by the force that Hamas and the armament and the way that Hamas was so? This seems so calculated, so prepared.
Yes. The
weaponry involved, the systematic attack. I mean, this was almost like that this was their Hail Mary, fourth quarter, you know, because I've noticed this about Arab history, they're willing to wait for years. You know, it didn't get lost on me that this happened on basically Yom Kippur. Like, there was another war in 73, they did the same thing, and the Arabs are brutal people, but they're predictive because this is what they do, and they'll wait you out for 20, 30 years and plan this big event, and then they'll, you know, get the hell blown out of them, and they'll be back later with another plan. But was there any shock or surprise how much force these people had? Because this was a massive attack. I don't think people understand what all the scope of what took place on October the 7th and how huge it was. And I'm talking armament and the death and the carnage that this thing brought. It was unreal. Unreal.
The command, control, and communication of Hamas and Iran and Qatar in doing this was amazing. And I will say one thing. There were people who saw that. There were Israelis who saw this coming, and they were ignored. There were soldiers who would make reports about what was happening, the buildup on the border, and they were ignored. And right now, we're seeing a massive battle, legal battle in Israel. It's between the Netanyahu government and the head of Mossad, whom Bibi has tried to fire, and whom the High Court, which is, by the way, skewed left, is trying to prevent Netanyahu from doing, and that's firing Ronen Bar. Ronen Bar, if you read any Israeli newspaper now, is now battling legally against Netanyahu, and it almost mirrors what happened in the United States. The lawfare that was waged against President Trump.
Yes.
In so many ways, and the ways that the Supreme Court is now being used to prevent his execution of policy. The border, what's happening with both illegal aliens, and what's happening again with Hamas supporters who lied on their visa applications as to what they were doing in the United States.
Interesting.
And that's happening here, and you see it every day in the press. So yes, there were people who knew, and they were ignored. Let's put it this way: the prep for two things contributed massively to what happened on October the 7th. The preparation of infrastructure, of the tunnels. People don't realize, Americans might not realize the sophistication and the scope and the breadth of these tunnels. You can drive two Humvees side by side through these tunnels, and people did. The tunnels from Egypt, Egypt. Sisi's son, the prime minister of the president of Egypt, the guy's name is Sisi, his son was in control of the Egyptian border with Gaza. His son made billions of dollars, basically coordinating the smuggling of weapons into Gaza. And also the tunnel system that leading up to Israel. I mean, Israel cut them off, but this was a major system. And by the way, a lot of the destruction in Gaza comes from both the tunnels, because the tunnels compromise the integrity of the structures above. So much of the collapse of structures came from the blowing up of the tunnels. And also, of course, Hamas also booby-trapped buildings because they were ready for the Israeli infantry. And they did that by booby-trapping residential areas. There was that, and then the second part was the 2011 deal of Gilad Shalit.
I remember that, yes.
The kidnapped soldier whose father basically threatened to bring down the Netanyahu government. And I'm ashamed to say that I believe one of Bibi's failures was to agree to a prisoner exchange in which I guess 1,000 prisoners were exchanged for this one soldier.
Yeah.
And that was I would say the green light that was placed on October the 7th happening.
That's interesting.
I don't blame Netanyahu. I mean, I would have done differently if it was me. I think he should have done differently. I think honestly, I like Bibi. I wouldn't be surprised if he steps down when this is over.
Wow, that's interesting.
I hope. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I think he does good things for good reasons, but I believe that this was and I'm not sure how much leeway he had, because the prime minister in Israel doesn't have quite the autonomy and that the president of the United States has in America. He has a cabinet. He also has a coalition, because no Israeli government ever had a majority of the popular vote or of any kind of vote. They deal in coalitions because Israeli system of representation is not as healthy as America's. Its system is a proportional system, which means everybody loses eventually. But anyway, we should have seen it. It should have been acted upon. People should have been fired on October the 8th, who weren't, and I think that points to a weakness in Israeli governance that has to be corrected.
Absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, it has to do with the people, folks. we take a little moment to say we want to welcome everyone in tonight on this late night Tuesday night, and we got our dear friend Michael Jaffe. He's with us tonight, and if you got a question relating to October the 7th or something we've talked about, please put it in the chat. We'll ask him while we've got him here. It's his morning, and we appreciate him getting up with us this morning. It's already around 6 or 7 in Israel today. Mike, where do you think we're roughly? I was just sitting there thinking we're about 18 months removed from October the 7th tonight. It happened in October. We're not April. We got Remembrance Day today in Israel, plus Independence Day tomorrow. Where is the psyche of the nation over all this? I know that I don't think these things ever you totally heal from them, but where is the nation right now, despite the political upheaval and the chaos? But I'm talking about the people, the common man on the street that gets up for work every morning. Where is the nation at?
With the hostages, with those who will remain in Gaza. I can say that without hesitation. The average man on the street, his thoughts are with the hostages first, and with the need to absolutely terminate Hamas as a viable military political movement, and also the resolution of what happens to Gazans next. Can Gazans remain in Gaza? Can those people who are largely indoctrinated into radical jihadism, and we're talking about indoctrinated from the cradle, and I'm not that sounds like cliche. It so isn't. It so is actually the fact that this indoctrination starts very, very young. The hatred of the Yahud, of the Kufar, starts in the cradle. And the question is, what has to be done? Clearly, the educational system, and this is, by the way, the same educational system that's in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. That's the same system. And if you think that Gazans are different from many of the Muslims in Judea and Samaria, it's not. It's the same type of curriculum. And by the way, people say, well, why is Israel active in the West Bank? Hamas isn't there. Hamas is there.
Yes,
Hamas
they are.
Is very popular. And Hamas is the reason why Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, is in the 19th year of a 4-year term. Because they know that Hamas would win. If there were elections and if Hamas were allowed to run, if Hamas were not allowed to run, then the masks would be off.
Right.
And Hamas would simply wage a war of extermination against the Palestinian Authority, and they would win.
Cleo Cleotis, our dear cherished friend, she's from down under. She's got a great question. You've sort of alluded to this, but she says, given the media opposition and the feeling in Israel, if Bibi is running for election, do you think he wins another term?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think Israel is on a wartime footing. Israel, the ramifications of the last 18 months are going to reverberate in Israel for the next 3 decades, until after I'm gone. The cost, the material cost of what they had to do to evacuate the south and the north, the cost of activating so many reservists and what it did to the economy, because the reservists, not only do you have to arm the reservists, but they're taking up. The reservists are also doctors, lawyers, high-tech people, physicians. Well, I said doctors, but also the people who run our economy, and in Israel, reservists, they don't get exempt because they're CEOs.
That's right.
They don't get exempt because
That's right.
they run because their company is being bought out by Google. they're still going up to the front lines. They're still going. My son does his reserve duty in Hebron, and in Shechem. So he's done 2 months this year, and now he's going back, and he's now back at his job, and he's likely going to be called back. He's a veterinarian, and you had and part of Israel's economy is also veterinarians.
That's interesting.
So
yeah, it's good.
So yeah, so
good.
Yeah,
and I appreciate your honesty about Bibi, and I'm with you. I do believe that they're in a wartime feeling. Dennis Floyd, good to see you tonight, Dennis, and great question, Cleo. Thank you. Dennis is asking, why do so many Jews in the United States support a party that is so anti-Semitic? That's an excellent question, and it comes up a lot over here because I do question that, because the Dems have never, if they say they support Israel, it's lip service, and then they will say and they will allow the squad, and I call them the herd. Your term is the sanitized version of mine. I call them the herd, but they say some of the most vile anti-Semitic rhetoric on the House of our congressional floors that I've ever heard in my life, and nothing done about it ever. But it seems that our election process, the Jews tend to vote Democrat, and that has been something I've been asked for 2 decades, 3 decades. Why?
I look for a biblical explanation for that. And I'll answer a question with that very good question with a question. What was the percentage of Israelites who actually left Egypt during the Exodus? You know the answer?
20%. 20%. Wow.
The answer is 20%. 4 out of 5 Israelites did not accompany Moses out of Egypt. What does that say? That says that it's always been a challenge. It's always been a challenge for Israelites who could have it better. And by Israelites, I would include Jews and Judeans. By the way, I like the term. This is also going to sound a little funny and strange coming from a Jewish person, but I don't really like the word Jew. The word Jew was a truncation of Judean. Our nation was Israel and Judah, our 2 kingdoms. The 2 kingdoms, when we had before the modern era, we had sovereignty. So my nationality is Judean, and Judaism is actually closer to the word Judean than Jew. So anyway, that's a little aside. That's my little nonsense.
That's all right.
Anyway, but yeah, how do I explain it? I explain it the same way I explain why until recently I lived in Florida, and I on October the 7th, 2023, beneath my American flag, which I proudly flew every day, I placed my Israeli flag. And in my community of Vizcaya, Florida, in Delray Beach, I'll name names. In my community, I was told that I could not, by the Property Owners Association, we call it the POA, it's really a POS, but the POA basically said I had to take down my Israeli flag. And I said, why?
Really?
And he said, well, because you're not allowed to fly it on the same pole as the American flag. What? I said, you fly the POW flag on the same pole.
You do? Yes.
You have to use a separate pole. Okay. So I put a separate pole up, and I continued to fly the flag. Then they told me, we're going to pass a rule, and the board is going to pass a rule forbidding any other flag other than the American flag. I said, why? They said, well, what would happen if people decided to fly a Palestinian flag? I said, well, people are adults. They have a civic responsibility to be law-abiding. First of all, why are you equating the two? And secondly, why do you think that your residents can't behave like adults? Anyway, They passed their rule. They grandfathered me. And then in 2024, a year ago, I came here to volunteer for 3 months. I came back. They said, you got to take down your flag. You're no longer grandfathered. I said, what do you mean? Anyway, the point was that 3 out of the 7 members of the board that voted against me, against my flag, were Jews.
Wow.
The people who were most on my side, who ran that place, were Italian, and they sided with me.
It's crazy.
So, it's Jews are, unfortunately, the Jews who have become very, very complacent are not the Jews who use their freedom in the United States and their pride in being Americans to remember where they came from and remember the attributes of common decency and humanity and righteousness, and that basically molded and guided the American founders.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Just see. Okay, we're comfortable here. But now the religious, I would say, religious Jews are solidly Republican now.
Gotcha. I think October the 7th changed a lot. I sensed that there was a change after October the 7th. I got another good question for you here. It's Pat and Deb Dolan tonight. To Pat and Deb, good to see y'all. They say, do you believe, or how long do you believe, that Israel will wait on the release of the hostages with the pressure mountain? And I'm going to ask Stephen's question along with theirs because it's sort of a similar question. He says, do you think that there will be another hostage for ceasefire deal? So it's sort of a point A, point B question. Is Israel going to wait much longer on this, or I'm going to throw this caveat in before I let you. I'll let you chime in. I had a guest on here about 6 months ago, Ruth Gudenheim. You may know Ruth, but she was lives in Israel. She's got dual citizenship, America and Israel. She told me something that it made so much sense, and she told me this in person, and she told it on the show. You see, when you're dealing with Israel, Mike, y'all have a humanitarian, and I say y'all, I'm talking about I'm talking about the nation, America and Israel. Israel has a humanitarian heart, and they are willing to save one hostage. They'll give the world, because I know a lot of people got upset with them for giving up all these Arab hostages and Hamas people when they traded for these few hostages they got back. I was taken aback by the number Israel got compared to what they had to give up. But you see, that's the difference in the heart and the soul of the two groups. Israel is concerned about life. They're concerned about that one hostages, and they would do whatever they got to do to get that one life back. Hamas couldn't care less about anybody. But at some point, does this wear thin and they have to do something to get these hostages back? Do they wait this out? Or it's actually not a bad question. How long do you wait?
It's a very good question.
How long do you wait? It is an excellent question.
How long do you wait? Okay, you mentioned humanitarianism. And it's important to note that Israel also, in all of its negotiations, whenever hostages have been taken, they have given the maximum to get hostages back, whether the hostages themselves were Jewish or non-Jewish.
That's true.
Israel has traded hostages, terrorists, for Arab Israelis too, for Muslim Israelis, and yes, but there has to be. But the thing is that you are not only giving up terrorists when you do these exchanges. You're mortgaging the next hostage event. You are basically making a down payment and making a reward that will result in another hostage-taking event. There will be another October the 7th if Hamas is allowed to survive this as a group. There will be. And Israelis, the problem is Israelis, they have some Israelis, I should say, the left, has a misplaced value and a misplaced version of reality in which they don't see that giving back, all they see is giving back terrorists and seeing the return of Israelis and getting that photo up. What they don't see is that they're giving up the next generation. They are sacrificing and mortgaging their own children who will have to go back and fight, who will be taken hostage, because you can never hermetically seal a people. and be a free republic. You can't hermetically seal it from people, from terrorists. It's all you can do is make it unprofitable to take hostages. But you're not doing that if you're giving back 1,000 to 1.
I'll agree with that. I totally agree with that. Was the Israeli people okay with what he did, though? I'm curious. How did that go across? I know that
many Israelis. I will tell you, I've had arguments. I've had vociferous arguments with Jewish people and Israelis when I would say, no, the Gilad Shalit deal was wrong. The Gilad Shalit deal was anti-humanitarian. The Gilad Shalit deal guaranteed October 7th.
You're so true. I'm with you.
And they were shouting at me, and this was in a synagogue. So they were shouting at me, saying, no, you have to. It doesn't matter. No price is too high. I said, yes, a price is too high. When someone is eyeing your child and your wife, and they're eyeing them, and they're saying, okay, give me what I want, and I'm going to give you this person back. And they're already looking to their next step. And the leaders of Hamas, including Yahya Sinwar, they were saying, no, we're going to do this again and again. That's what we do. And that's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to liberate the caliphate. We're going to reestablish the caliphate. And basically, how long is Israel going to wait? That's a really good question. It bothers me tremendously. I don't think they can wait long. First of all, there's no guarantee that that another president will come along like President Trump.
That's very true. That's a key.
And
yes.
Whatever leverage, whatever leeway Israel has in acting, in carrying out operations, in attacking Iran, and trying to shut down its nuclear program, that ends when a friendly administration leaves office. And unfortunately, in the case of the United States, the Democrat Party still holds a lot of sway. It's true that this past administration was so bad that they lost both houses of Congress and the presidency. But that can change. That can certainly change, and that's part of Israeli. That's part of American democracy and freedom, is that it can change. And Ronald Reagan said it so well. We're always only one generation away from losing our freedom.
So true. That is so true. We're going to keep you about another 5 minutes, buddy, and I'm going to let you go. You've been such a great guest tonight. I tell you, I just appreciate you. It's been a pleasure.
With your audience. I love their questions. I love your questions.
Yeah.
You ask really insightful questions. So we
got a good audience here. I will brag on them anytime, and I tell you, they're good folks, and they got some. If you got some more folks, we got them for 5 minutes. Now we could keep him here all day, but he's got to get up and eat breakfast, and I got to get some rest tonight. But I do want to ask you a question myself. I know that Twitter and X and social media is seen all over the world. How does the normal Israeli handle this American brand of anti-Semitism? I'm not even talking about the campus stuff. I'm talking about some of these conservative voices that have turned absolutely rabidly anti-Semitic, that have millions of followers, and it's got to sting. It just shakes me to my core. And I'm a Southerner. We Southerners, we just look at things sort of common sense, and we just call a spade. And I just want to slap the living blank. Forgive me, Lord. Yeah. I want to slap the living blank out of some of these so-called conservative stars that have turned on Israel, Mike. And I don't know I don't have any justification. They have nothing but just and it sounds like, and I hate to use this term, it sounds like just some kind of backyard 5th grade good old Jew hate talk that you'd hear among a bunch of ignorant high schoolers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like that. It's media likes a shock. Media loves to shock. You've heard of shock jocks, of the Howard Stern brand of shock radio, which people used to listen. his big audience is the morning audience, the commuting audience, the people who are in their cars in New York battling hour-long traffic just to get to work, and they need something to wake them up. And so they discovered Howard Stern. I don't remember when he started. I think in 1990 or something.
Yeah, about that time. Yeah.
But you had Howard Stern, and you had all, and he ushered in an era of shock jocks, and that's what we're seeing, I think, on social media. Social media has by now surpassed legacy media. Absolutely. I don't know of anybody who gets their news from an hour-long broadcast
so true.
at 6 o'clock at night and at 7 o'clock in the morning. No. News happens 24 hours a day. People are on Twitter and X. X is now the chosen media platform of journalists. And the reason is because it's 24 hours a day. It's the best way. It's one way. Actually, it's not an accurate polling mechanism for people. It's clearly not. But what it does do, it sees who is active, who's making noise, who's getting the eyeballs, and it's all about eyeballs. And yes, there are, and I've been surprised. I met Candace Owens. I saw Candace Owens in Jerusalem. She came to the opening. She was along with Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
And she was with Charlie Kirk.
With the
brought
embassy
her to Jerusalem for the opening of the embassy.
Yeah.
Of the American embassy in Jerusalem. She was so pro-Israel. And then I don't know what happened to her. Nothing. Israel didn't change. Candace Owens, her public persona changed. And a lot of, and then you had the people who just got famous by spouting anti-Semitism, and that's how they get their eyeballs. That there apparently is an audience for this. It's not a small audience, and they hate Jews, and they see it as their article of, for some, they see it as their article of faith, that they will proclaim loudly that Jews should not have a voice, that Jews should not be free, that Jews should not be Americans, and do not deserve the benefits of Western civilization.
Yeah,
it's
terrible.
Jewish culture and the biblical culture spawned Western civilization. I don't have an explanation other than it's just like in Europe. Europe's reaction to morality staring them in the face, to a mirror being held up to them. They'd like to break the mirror.
That's so true.
And that mirror of morality for them is the Jew.
Cleo put in the house, she said that her husband is a rabid anti-Semite, and that may have had some kind of effect on her. But
his name is George Farmer.
Yeah, and Mike, I tell you, we're in weird times, man. I tell you, and again, we've not talked for a few years now, and in the life, this just goes to show you how fast the world changes on us, and how rapidly this stuff is exploding. And I want to just say this tonight: our prayers go to the entire nation of Israel tonight. This is Remembrance Day, and all of these victims of terror. I don't even know if there's a figure out there. I know it's in the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that have perished. And you go back to 1948 when Israel was reformed as a nation, and as a country, I know, and
we've been a nation for about
3,000 years. That's where I was going. They didn't just because I hear this from these anti-Semites. This is another thing that the anti-Semites push, that Israel just fell out of heaven in 1948. And I said, no, Israel was around a lot longer than 1948, but they were reformed as a nation. But it does speak of a weird time of history that we're living in right now. And we're all on these front lines, and voices like yours are so important. And look, when we have these Remembrance Days and Independence Days and Holocaust Remembrance Days, I think that we as Americans and Gentiles and Jews and together, and I say that term very respectively, we need to look at each other, and we need to realize that we're in this fight together. This is not, anti-Semitism is not just about the Israelites and Jewish people. It's about all of us. It's about, because see, that same hate that is centered on a certain race, you said something a while ago, and it caught my attention. It's all of us that they're hating. We don't get that over here in the West. We don't understand that the car bomb that went off in Jerusalem last night that we don't think about, don't think it's that big a deal. That's going to happen in Chicago one night, or that's going to happen in St. Louis or a big American city, and Americans are going to die, and the same people that did it over there is going to do it over here. So it's not just about a racial thing, it's a freedom thing, and it is a tyrannical narrative that one certain religion and group wants to dominate this world, and they are willing to kill for that. They're willing to give their life up for it, and I'm not so sure we're dedicated to give our life up to protect it, and that's a scary thought when you think about it, buddy. Listen, I could keep you all day, but you got to get going. Please come back soon, and we got a great audience that loves you, and I tell you, we appreciate you, and you've been such a great interview tonight. I appreciate you so much, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to wrap us up and final thoughts, and we'll let you get out of here.
Final thoughts. Yeah, we are in this together, and I will just. You asked me about two Israels. Mm-hmm. I mentioned that was one of my websites at one point, or it has been in the past. The reason the reason that movement is called Two Israels is because the founders of the Pilgrims, and then later the founding fathers of America, of the United States, they saw themselves as the Israelites of their generation. They identified with the story of the Exodus. They identified with the Confederation of States, a la the tribes of Israel, because Israel as a nation was formed up of 12 tribes, each with its own characteristics, just like each state has its own characteristics. So the United States was conceived by, or I say America was conceived by the founder, by the Pilgrims, as New Israel. Not to replace Old Israel, but as a new expression of that love of humanity, of that love of the good life which requires a religious type of discipline, and the discipline is the discipline of both humility and hard work and openness. And to remember that our partnership, the partnership between Israel and America, predates the American Revolution.
It sure does.
The Pilgrims were in Amsterdam. They were in Amsterdam. They were Calvinists, and the Pilgrims, the American Pilgrims, they knew Sephardic Jews in Amsterdam, and they had common cause with them, and so our partnership is in the blood, and our national brotherhood goes way back, and it survived, and I think it's there still, and I think America is going to pull through this. I think Israel is going to pull through this. That's my faith. That's my article of faith.
Good.
Is that we'll do this, and we'll do it by proclaiming freedom, not by limiting it or restricting it, but by proclaiming freedom, free speech, the freedom to protect ourselves, and also the willingness to stand alone for what's right. Even if the whole world stands against us, we will continue. And we will continue to be what we are. America will continue to be what it is, despite the fact that European countries have always been sorely jealous of the United States, but they have not turned down American help. And I mean, look what's happening with the United Nations. I believe that the best is really yet to come, and miracles are about to happen.
I share your optimism, and I appreciate that.
I see it every day. I see it here. Last night I saw it in the crowd of people who were mourning their family members. In a crowd. I was on a plaza last night in the town that I'm in, and we must have had about 5,000 people in that plaza, or 6,000 people, to remember all the dead from that town. And this is a small town. And 24,000, and about, let's say 1,000 people from a town of about 20,000 have died over the years in the wars, in the terrorist actions against Israel, against Jews, against the West. Because remember, that's what they're really fighting against.
Absolutely.
They're fighting against the West. And I saw that, but the other thing I saw was the strength. There's a strength here. And there's a strength in the United States. There's a power. And I believe it originates from God, but it reverberates through Jews and Christians and those Muslims who are willing to really live, and not just exist, but to live in a free society. I believe those Muslims are there, and I'm not ready to write them off. I think that, and I'm not ready to write off America or Israel. I think we're going to survive. I think we're going to thrive.
Well said, my friend. So good to see you. Stay in touch, and hope we connect and come into contact in person one of these days. And we appreciate you here. And know this, that I know I speak for myself, but I speak for our audience, and I speak for the entire nation. I believe we're praying for you. We're praying for this whole nation of Israel, and I'm praying for healing, Mike. I really do. I know there's a lot of wounds that are still fresh, and I know that God is a healing God. He's a loving God, and I know that He's going to bring comfort during these times. I know it's still fresh. I know 18 months seems like a long time, but something like this, and you still with hostages still in that Gaza Strip. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to go away. And it's like for us that were alive on 9/11 here, we don't forget. And Israel's not going to forget October the 7th, and the world should not forget it either. But thank you so much for your insight tonight, my friend. We'll be talking soon. May the Lord bless you. Good night. God bless. Michael Jaffe, everybody. Put some fire in that house for him. That was a great interview. I appreciate him so much tonight, and I appreciate his insight. And let me see if I can get myself up here. There we go. We are back on a regular screen. Did you enjoy that tonight? If you enjoyed Michael Jaffe, put some fire in that house. Oh, he was good, wasn't he? That was absolutely fantastic, and absolutely fantastic stuff tonight. I've got a lot to say. We're going to whoops, I just sorry. Chris had his hair stuck up. Don't somebody be taking pictures of that and say, "Oh, I knew McDonald had horns. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it." It's late. It's late. We're grateful that you're here tonight, and I don't want to ruin this interview, so I'm going to save some of the comments I had for tonight for later. I'm going to do something. I'm going to cut and paste the interview from earlier tonight and just put the afterthought up on YouTube, not the other stuff. And I do want to say one thing about 9/11, folks, and we sort of alluded to it just now with Michael. It is absolutely 1,000% not the opinion of this show and me that 9/11 was an inside job in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I believe that there were things done by these perpetrators that perhaps that we were never really given privy to what they actually did. I do believe there were actual planes. We were not watching a movie. I can tell you that the 3,000 people that died that day were not a movie. It was an actual attack on our nation. COVID was an actual virus on our nation. And please understand, I'll just leave it at this, the opinions of our guests are their opinions. That's all they are. And I know some of you sort of get taken aback sometimes with what people say. I can't control what they're going to say. And again, you have to take what our guests say, chew on it, pray over it, spit out the sticks, and if there's something that you can glean from, do that. But please also know if you want to know how I feel about something, you can either email me or I'll tell you directly here on this program. We do not believe that 9/11 was a movie. And but I did say some things at the end of the show tonight that I felt were very important, and I'm going to try to edit that video down and get it put. I'm going to put that video, that part of it, on our platforms at least. And I appreciate Dr. Smith. It's nothing reflection against him, but I didn't leave the show feeling good about that statement, and because there were 3,000 lives that were lost that day. And I can guarantee you to them it wasn't a movie. It wasn't a movie. So just understand that is our position. It will always be our position. We love the nation of Israel. We care for the Jewish people. I have this flag behind me every night as a reminder. If I can get this to move. I have this flag behind me every night as a reminder. And I bought this recently, and I hadn't had it behind me. I put this behind me. That is the menorah out of the holy place, and those are reminders. I don't worship these symbols. I don't worship Israel as a nation. I'll just use my term. I don't shrill for governments, and I don't shrill for politicians of any nation. I shrill for policy, and I shrill for people. People is my passion on this network. I'm not concerned about political agendas and all this other stuff. I'm concerned about the people of Israel tonight. I'm concerned about people like Michael Jaffe. I'm concerned about these hostages that we may or may not ever see anymore. I'm concerned for the thousands and millions in Ukraine and Russia that have perished in an unnecessary war that has been financed and extorted to be financed by the United States of America and to give in to the Ukraine. And again, folks, there are some nuggets of some things that people have said, about the situation that you can agree with, and I've learned the ability. I've got the ability to listen to people, and what I agree with, I nod my head. And if I'm saying that's right, it doesn't mean I'm saying I agree with it. What I'm saying is that's their opinion, and so please understand that tonight, and I'm not saying that in any kind of animosity or anything like that. I'm not even saying that in any kind of reflection on any of our guests. I trust me. We've been at this a while, and through the years, sometimes the guest opinion gets thrown on us, and we get blamed for something the guest says, and we can't. I'm not going to contend. That will not happen. We're going to make it clear what we believe, and that's how I feel about it. And I think that most people with reasonable thinking minds think that. Now, if you don't want to believe that that's what happened, and you want to believe the theories and the conspiracy stuff, then that's up to you too, and it's okay. We can agree to disagree and hug each other's neck, and that's all right. That's fine. It's up to you what you want to believe, but that's what I believe. You've got people that deny October the 7th happened. This is the reason I said it. The same people that would deny that September the 11th happened of 2001 are out there denying that this actually happened on October the 7th, where nearly the same amount of Israelis were slaughtered or injured. If you add them all up, it was close to 3,000 with the injuries and the deaths. It's not even counting the American loss of life and other nations' loss of life. Hostages that are still there, we've got about 50 that have been unaccounted for. And again, folks, it's a flip of the coin whether we'll ever see these people. But you've got Christian voices. And I say Christian, they're not Christian. That's put in parentheses. They're vile anti-Semites. You've got prophets that are questioning the validity of whether October the 7th happened or not. And if you want to be that demonic and that evil to believe such, you go right ahead. I want to say it again tonight, folks. I ain't going to spend a lot of time tonight because it's 12:30, and I've given you an hour. I've given you 3 hours tonight, hour and a half earlier, and an hour and a half tonight. Just a friendly reminder. Just a friendly reminder. The Bible is absolutely 1,000% clear on the future restoration, the travail, what she's about to go through, but the fact that at the end of that travail, Israel will be standing. Israel's going to be saved. This nation right here, who I love, because this is my nation and your nation tonight, if you're an American, the Bible is absolutely silent on the future of our nation. It just uses the term nations, but it doesn't specifically mention America in it. You would think that in this time of history, with America being the only superpower on the earth, that we would at least get a nod, we'd at least get a reference made to us in some passage. And no matter how people stretch and twist and put symbols where they don't need to be and claim this and claim that, America's not in Bible prophecy, folks. It just ain't. What does that tell me? As a reasonably minded thinking person, the Lord, if we're the world's superpower now, and we know that the kingdom of the beast is the world's last superpower on earth before you come, and America is not mentioned in Scripture, what does that tell me? It tells me two things. In the immediate, our health and our blessing and our survival in these troublesome days is dependent on our support of that nation right here. Period. Long term, if America is not mentioned in Scripture, something is about to happen to this nation, folks, and we don't have any timetable on this. I believe this is all in the future. If Israel's not mentioned in Scripture, that means there's no future, long-term future, past the rapture of the church. All bets are off once that takes place. That's why it's getting late. It's getting late, and these things matter that we talked about tonight. These things matter. What we're talking about tonight. Snake venom has no eternal matter to it. Water systems with snake venom in it and all this stuff. And folks, again, as far as the vaccines go, it's up to you what you want to do about a vaccine and what you want to do about your life, and how you handle your life is your business. The nature and the purpose of this show is to get people on like Michael Jaffe, to give you some help as to what's going on in this world. Dr. Smith as well, and again, I even have said it in the past, Dr. Smith and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but on some things we do, but he's a friend, and I don't mind having him on to talk to you, and I appreciate his insight because has done a lot of research. Some research that he does, some of the sources, I wouldn't give a nod to those folks, and I caution you, folks, if you read something from somebody and you say, well, this don't sound right, then understand you need to probably put it down because it's probably not right and move on to something else. We're in eternal times, and we're in troublesome times. We are in prophetic times. We are in perilous times. We are in times that our nation is at a crossroads again. We've been at a crossroads forever, and we've got one direction to go or the other. We can't stay stagnant. We're not going to stay stagnant. We're going to make a decision as a nation, either just go with God or not go with God. Folks, I'm telling you, this little tiny nation of Israel, you just can't escape it when you read in Scripture of their role and what's coming in Bible prophecy. And it's huge. All righty. I've got more to say, but it's 12:30, and the clock says an hour and 33 minutes. I think that's what it says. I can't see this late at night. No, 1 hour 31. So good. We're just a minute over, but we're about to be over because we're going to say goodnight. I hope you enjoyed Michael Jaffe. Thank you all for the great questions. Thank you all for being with us tonight. And we deeply appreciate you. And we will have an edited version. On the social media platforms. And we thank you all for being with us tonight. I cannot thank Michael Jaffe enough. He was just tremendous tonight. And we thank Dr. Smith too. And again, that was when he said that, I was we don't embrace that kind of stuff here. We don't embrace that kind of stuff. And you do need to make your own call about medical decisions. I don't care what kind of medical decision it is. That needs to be done by you. And not on the advice of somebody else. You need to consult a licensed professional. Dr. Smith does not function in vaccines. He's done research about it. But he is a physician. You heard him. He started out in the hospital wards of hospitals. So he does have a medical background, but his current practice is not that. So please understand we're saying that, folks. It's not a slight to Dr. Smith. It's a protection for you. Okay? And we love you all tonight. We thank you for being with us. I saw Elaine Willard, and she mentioned the fact it was educational tonight. It was very educational. I tell you, you get a sense. I think you got a sense from listening to Michael Jaffe what's going on tonight, how the heart of the nation of Israel feels tonight. And the Jewish people are feeling, they're feeling this 18 months later. And their hearts with those hostages. And I think that until those hostages come home, this fog is going to continue to settle over them. And I pray that it gets resolved quickly and for the best. Listen, deeply much grateful that you've been with us this late night hour. I'll see you Bible students in the morning. And then we've got our midweek Bible study. As of right now, no faith chat. Thursday afternoon at 12 noon, we'll have our regular shows. Thursday's going to be a busy day around here. But we have got a very special Thursday afternoon because May the 1st is National Day of Prayer. And I'll just mention this before I go out of here tonight. Let me see here, put this down. Have a little blip there. Let me put this on here for you. It will start at 12 noon, and we will be on the McFiles Faith and News Networks, X, Rumble, and Facebook. And we will have a noon prayer event. It'll last about an hour 15 minutes at most. We have to be on the radio by 2 every day. And but we're going to pray for the country. We're going to pray for Israel. We're going to pray for the church. If you would like to be part of this, we'll fit in as many people as we can between the hours of noon and 1 Eastern on Thursday for the National Day of Prayer. And we hope that you can join us for that on all the networks. All righty. I hope you enjoyed the shows tonight. I'm done now. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed out there and be safe. Get some rest. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night, everybody.